He bled for the alien princess. Now the queen refuses to let him go. HFY Story. New storyline version. Part 1. The transport ship, Aurora Trail, drifted slowly through the upper clouds of the Zalira homeworld, as Evan Hale stood near the viewport, watching the alien city appear beneath the mist. He had seen many planets during his time as a peacekeeper, but this one felt different. The towers were shaped like bending trees, glowing with soft blue lights, and airships moved quietly between them like birds gliding through water. Everything looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Evan knew that peace often hid danger. He had been assigned as the human representative for a cultural exchange program. Earth and Zalira had created a new agreement after years of misunderstanding. To keep relations calm, the Queen invited Earth to send one human soldier to serve as a temporary guardian during the upcoming celebration. Evan had no idea why they chose him. He was not the strongest, nor the fastest, but he had something the commanders liked: calm judgment. He never rushed into fights, never reacted with emotion, and always looked for solutions instead of conflict. Still, being the only human on a world of tall, strong, sharp-eyed aliens made him uneasy. The ship landed on a circular platform made of silver stone. Zalira guards, tall and wearing dark purple armor, stood waiting. Their spears were long and glowing at the tips, ceremonial, but still deadly. Evan stepped out, wearing a simple human uniform with the Earth Peacekeeper badge on the left shoulder. He took a slow breath. A guard approached him. She was almost a foot taller than he was. "You are Evan Hale," she said in a deep, calm voice. "Yes," Evan replied. "You will follow. The Queen wishes to welcome you during the evening feast." Evan nodded and walked with them as they moved through long hallways carved from pale crystal stone. The air felt warm and carried a light scent of flowers. Everything seemed elegant and careful, like the whole palace was built by artists, not engineers. As they approached a wide-open chamber, Evan heard soft music, slow, peaceful tones that echoed through the halls. Inside stood dozens of nobles dressed in long robes, their skin glowing faintly under the lights. Some had markings on their faces showing their rank. At the center of the gathering stood Princess Liara, daughter of the Queen. Evan recognized her immediately from the mission files: tall, graceful, silver eyes that reflected light like water. She was young compared to most nobles, known for studying other species and trying to understand their cultures. Many aliens looked cold and distant to humans, but Liara's eyes looked full of curiosity. She noticed Evan and stepped toward him. "You are the human from Earth," she said softly. Evan bowed slightly. "Yes, Evan Hale. I'm honored to be here." Liara studied him, calm but clearly interested. "You are smaller than I expected." Evan gave a small smile. "Humans often hear that." Liara tilted her head. "Do not misunderstand. Your world has earned a strong reputation. We heard humans are brave. Sometimes too brave." Evan wasn't sure how to answer that, so he only nodded. The princess motioned for him to walk beside her as the celebration continued. The feast was unlike anything Evan had seen. Food glowed with colors he didn't even know existed. And the palace musicians played instruments shaped like spirals. The nobles watched him carefully, whispering among themselves. Humans were still new to them. Some admired Earth's courage. Others thought humans were reckless. Princess Liara stayed close, explaining various traditions. Evan listened quietly. His job was simple: stay respectful, stay peaceful, and help maintain trust. But peace never lasts long. Hours later, after the feast ended, Evan stepped into one of the palace gardens to get fresh air. The sky was dark now, filled with floating lights shaped like small stars. The garden paths glowed under his boots as he walked. Tall glass flowers opened and closed slowly with the breeze. He stopped near a pond, watching the soft ripples move across the water. The peace felt strange, like the calm before something breaks. That's when he heard footsteps, soft, unsure. He turned and saw Princess Liara walking alone, holding a small tablet in her hands. "You left the feast early," she said, stopping beside him. "I needed air," Evan replied. Liara looked at the water. "Many nobles watched you tonight. Some were judging. Some were curious. I hope it did not trouble you. I'm used to it, Evan said. Humans are different. People always judge what feels new. She smiled slightly. That is true. Even our own people judge each other too quickly. A quiet moment passed. Liara then said, My mother the Queen invited Earth here because she wishes to know if humans can be trusted with responsibility in our empire. Some say your kind is too emotional. Some say you act without thinking. And what do you say? Evan asked gently. Liara thought for a moment. I say no species should be judged by rumors. I wish to understand with my own eyes. That is why I came here tonight. Evan nodded. I respect that. Before she could respond, a sudden breeze swept across the garden. The lights flickered. The flowers closed sharply, reacting to something. Evan felt the air change. He had trained long enough to know when danger was near. His heart tensed. Then he saw movement shadows shifting behind the trees. Evan stepped forward immediately. Princess, get behind me. Liara frowned. What? Now, Evan said firmly. She obeyed, sensing his seriousness. 3 figures stepped out of the shadows wearing dark cloaks. Their faces were covered, and they held strange weapons that hummed softly. Evan didn't know the type, but he knew the intent. The attackers moved fast. Liara stepped back, startled. Evan raised his hands instinctively, staying between her and the danger. You don't want to do this, Evan warned, though he already knew they didn't care. One attacker rushed forward. Evan grabbed a stone lantern near the path and blocked the strike. The force pushed him back, but he stayed standing. He swung the lantern, hitting the attacker's arm, causing the weapon to drop. The second attacker moved in, slashing with a glowing blade. Evan dodged, but not fast enough. The blade cut across his forearm. Pain shot up his arm. Warm blood rushed down his hand. But he didn't fall back. He stepped forward again, blocking the path to Liara. She gasped. Evan, you're hurt. I'm fine, he said, though he wasn't. Blood covered his sleeve, but he kept his stance strong. He had no weapon, no armor, no advantage. But he had something else: refusal. He would not step aside. The attackers hesitated. Evan's courage confused them. Humans were supposed to be weaker. They expected him to run or kneel. But he stood like a wall of flesh and stubborn will. One attacker signaled the others. They began to circle. Evan moved slowly, keeping his body between them and the princess. He didn't need to win, only delay. Help would come if he bought time. The attackers lunged again. Evan grabbed another stone lantern, but this time he wasn't fast enough. A blade cut across his ribs. He stumbled, breath shaking, but he did not fall. Liara cried out, trying to help him, but he raised a hand, telling her to stay back. He forced himself to stand straight again. You will not touch her. His voice was quiet, but it hit the attackers with unexpected force. For a moment, even they seemed unsure. Then sudden bright lights filled the garden. Palace guards stormed in from both sides, their spears glowing as they surrounded the attackers. The intruders tried to flee, but they were quickly overpowered and restrained. Liara ran to Evan and held his shoulders, steadying him as he wavered. You are bleeding, she said, her voice breaking. It's fine, Evan whispered. No, it is not fine. You are hurt because of me. Evan shook his head. My job is to protect. I chose to stand there. She looked at him with wide, confused eyes. No one had ever said such words to her so simply. The Zalira Queen, Mother Ceres, arrived moments later. Tall, commanding, and silent. She approached Evan, who stood straight, despite the blood dripping down his arm, and sighed. You are the human guardian, she said. Yes, Your Majesty, Evan replied. You bled for my daughter. I did what I had to. The Queen stared at him long, steady, unreadable. Evan didn't know if she was angry, surprised, or suspicious. Then she spoke softly, almost to herself. This human does not break. She turned to her guards. Take him to the healing chambers, and do not let him out of your sight. Her tone changed strong, final. This human saved the heir of Zalira. He will not leave this palace without my permission. Evan felt the weight of her words. He had protected the princess. But now his life was no longer fully his own. Princess Liara watched him being escorted away. Her expression filled with worry, and something deeper, respect, confusion, and a question she could not yet understand. Evan had bled for her, and the Queen was not going to let him walk away so easily. Evan Hale woke slowly, his vision blurry, and his body heavy. The first thing he felt was warmth spreading across his side, soothing the deep cut near his ribs. Soft blue lights glowed above him, forming patterns like moving water. He blinked a few times until the world became clear. He was inside a healing chamber, one far more advanced than anything Earth possessed. The room hummed with gentle energy, and transparent curtains floated around the bed like drifting clouds. His arm and side were wrapped in smooth silver bands that pulsed softly, closing the wounds little by little. He tried to sit up, but a calm voice stopped him. "Do not move too quickly. Your body is not ready." Evan turned his head. A Zalira healer stood beside the bed, tall, calm, her hands glowing as she adjusted the healing bands. "How long was I unconscious?" Evan asked. "Only a short while," the healer replied. "Your wounds were deep, but your strength, unusual. Humans heal slower than we do, but you are resisting weakness. That is not common." Evan gave a small shrug. "Humans are stubborn." The healer studied him with quiet interest. "The Queen has ordered that you recover here, under strict protection. You are not allowed to move around the palace until she gives permission." Evan swallowed. He expected this, but it still made him uneasy. "Is the princess safe?" "Yes, she is unharmed." A wave of relief washed over him. He relaxed against the bed, not caring about his own pain. As long as Liara was safe, the wounds didn't matter. The healer stepped away, leaving him alone. Evan stared at the ceiling lights, letting the quiet sink in. He had come to this planet for peacekeeping, not to bleed in palace gardens and create political storms. Now the Queen had placed him under protection or control. He wasn't sure which. The door slid open gently. Princess Liara stepped inside. Her silver eyes softened when she saw him awake. She approached with careful steps, like she was afraid he might disappear if she moved too fast. "You should not be moving," Evan said, trying to sit up straighter. "You nearly died," Liara replied quietly. "I think I can break one rule to visit you." She stood beside his bed, her hands clasped in front of her. For the first time, she looked shy, something unusual for someone born royal. "What were you doing walking alone after the feast?" Evan asked. "There were too many shadows, too many places for danger to hide. I walk there often," she said. "It is the one place where I can think without being watched. And tonight it almost got you killed." Liara lowered her eyes. "Yes. And you stood in front of me, even though you knew they had weapons." Evan tried to smile. "That's what a protector does." Liara studied his face for a long moment. "But you are not my protector. You were not assigned to me. You had no duty to guard me." Evan held her gaze. "Maybe not. But you needed help." Her breath caught slightly, as if his words were something she had never heard before. Zalira nobles rarely acted without duty or reward. But Evan acted because he chose to. She swallowed, her voice soft. "Thank you for bleeding for me." The words sounded difficult for her to say, like she had never thanked anyone who put their life at risk for her. Evan simply nodded. "I would do it again." Liara didn't respond immediately. She looked at his bandaged arm, then at the wound on his ribs, and her hands tightened. "I do not wish for you to be hurt again," she whispered. Before he could answer, the chamber door opened once more. The Queen entered. Mother Saris moved with silent confidence, her long, dark robes flowing behind her. The guards bowed deeply. Liara stepped back, her expression shifting into calm respect. Evan tried to stand, but pain forced him to stop. "Do not move, human," the Queen said. "Your injuries have not healed." Her voice was not harsh, but it carried command. She walked closer, her eyes sharp and unreadable. "You protected my daughter," she said. Not once. And you did it without weapon, armor, or advantage. Do you understand what this means? I did what I had to, Evan replied simply. The Queen raised an eyebrow. No. You did far more than you had to. Most beings choose life over sacrifice. Most would have run. I don't run, Evan said, meeting her eyes. For the first time, the Queen looked almost amused. So I have learned. She turned to the healer. Leave us. The healer bowed and left quickly. Now only the Queen, the princess, and Evan remained. Mother Saris spoke again, her tone slow and thoughtful. Princess Liara has always been important to our people. She is the future of Zelira. Many want her gone because they fear her ideas. She believes in new alliances, new ways of thinking. Some do not. Evan understood. The attackers tonight, they weren't outsiders? No, the Queen said. They were from within our borders. Possibly from noble houses who want control. Evan felt anger rise not for himself, but for Liara. They won't succeed. The Queen studied him closely. You speak with confidence. Why? Because I'll stand between them and her, Evan said quietly. Liara inhaled sharply, but the Queen remained unreadable. You speak as if she is your duty. I don't need orders to do the right thing. The Queen walked slowly around his bed, her eyes never leaving him. Evan didn't flinch, he held still. Even when pain shot through him. He refused to look weak. Finally, the Queen stopped in front of him. I have made my decision, she said. From this moment, you are not merely a visitor. You are under the direct watch of the royal family. You will remain in this palace until the threat against the princess is removed. Evan blinked. So I'm a prisoner? Liara stepped forward quickly. Mother, no. The Queen raised her hand, silencing her daughter without a word. You are not a prisoner, Saris said, but neither are you free to leave. You will stay because your presence is valuable. Your instincts are sharp. Your loyalty unquestioned. And your courage. She paused. Rare. Evan held her gaze. You want me to protect the princess? The Queen nodded slowly. Yes. But more than that, I want to understand humans. I want to know why one human can stand against death without fear. Evan breathed carefully. Fear isn't something humans get rid of. We learn to walk with it. That answer made the Queen fall silent. Princess Liara watched the exchange with wide eyes. She had never seen her mother struggle to understand someone before. The Queen finally said, Your words carry weight, human. And your actions carry more. She turned to the guards. Prepare a chamber for him in the inner palace. He will stay near the royal wing. He is to be watched, but not restricted. No harm is to come to him. And no one touches him without my approval. Evan frowned slightly. I don't need special treatment. You do now, the Queen said. You are part of something larger than you understand. She looked at Liara. Stay here for now. Speak with him. Learn from him. Then she left the chamber. Silence followed. Liara exhaled slowly, clearly troubled. My mother. She sees things differently than most. But she is not cruel. She only does what she believes is necessary. I understand, Evan said. But, Liara continued softly, I fear she also wants to control the things she values. Evan nodded once. I figured as much. Liara moved closer, her voice low. She will watch you. She will test you. And she will not let you leave easily. Evan sighed. I really didn't plan for any of this. Nor did I, Liara whispered. She sat beside his bed, her expression gentle but filled with conflict. You are hurt because of me, she said. And now my mother has made your life more difficult. Evan shook his head. I choose my actions. Not her. Liara's expression softened. Then, I hope you will keep choosing to stay. Evan looked at her for a long second. Her eyes, usually calm and cold like silver, now looked warm, almost vulnerable. I stay because you're still in danger, he said. Liara nodded slowly. I know. But sometimes, I hope you stay for more than danger. Before he could respond, a guard entered to escort him to his new chamber. Liara watched silently as Evan was helped out of the healing bed and taken away. He was still injured, still recovering, still trapped in a palace he didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. The Queen had no intention of letting him go. Not now. Not after he bled for her daughter. Evan Hale's new chamber was nothing like the healing room. It was larger, built with smooth white stone and soft blue lights. The windows opened to the sky, showing the city glowing in the distance. It should have felt peaceful, but Evan felt something else, like he was living inside a cage made of beauty. 2 guards stood outside his door at all times. They didn't speak to him, but he knew they had orders. He remembered the Queen's words clearly. He will remain here. He will not leave without my permission. Evan wasn't used to being restricted. He had served in different missions, traveled across dangerous worlds, and survived many crises. But being trapped in a palace with no weapon, no freedom, and no clear role made him restless. Still, he reminded himself that Liara was safe. That mattered more than his discomfort. On his second morning, Evan tried simple exercises, but the wound on his ribs still hurt. He pushed through the pain. He needed to stay sharp. He couldn't rely on palace guards alone, not when attackers had walked into the garden as if they belonged there. He paused when he heard a soft knock. "Enter," he said. The door slid open, and Princess Liara stepped inside with a small tray in her hands. "You are awake," she said. "Good. I brought you breakfast." Evan blinked. "Princess, you don't need to do that." "I do." She placed the tray on the table. "You cannot leave this room easily. And the guards will not bring food themselves. If I leave it to the palace servants, they will stare at you the entire time. So instead," Evan said gently. "You stare at me?" Liara looked surprised, then gave a small laugh. "I only stare when you say strange things." She sat across from him, watching as he tasted the food. It was soft, mild, and slightly sweet, something like a mix of fruit and bread. Liara seemed calmer today, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. "Evan," she said slowly, "my mother is planning something." Evan nodded. "I assumed that. She does not trust easily. She believes every being has a reason for their actions. When she looks at you, she sees something she cannot explain. And that makes her cautious." Evan set down his spoon. "Is she planning to use me?" Liara hesitated. "Yes. But not in a cruel way. She wants to learn what kind of human you are. She wants to know if you can be shaped into something that helps the Empire." Evan exhaled. "I see." Liara leaned forward. "Evan, she will test you. She will watch your reactions, your strength, your patience, even your heart." Evan looked at her. "And what do you want?" Liara's eyes softened. "I want you to be safe. I want you to be free. But right now, the only way to gain my mother's trust is to play her game." Before he could answer, the door opened again. A guard bowed. "Princess Liara. Her Majesty requests the human's presence in the trial hall." Liara stiffened. "Already?" The guard did not respond. Evan stood slowly, adjusting his shirt around his healing ribs. "Let's go." Liara touched his arm gently. "Be careful. My mother never tests without a purpose." The trial hall was enormous, circular, with rising marble steps leading to a platform. The Queen stood at the center wearing her ceremonial robe, dark as night with silver symbols flowing across it. High nobles filled the sides, watching in silence. Evan stepped inside, feeling every eye on him. Liara stayed behind him, close but not too close. She would not be allowed to interfere. The Queen lifted her hand. "Human Evan Hale," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "You stand before the throne today, not as a prisoner, nor as a guest, but as a being whose actions demand understanding." Evan held her gaze. "You bled for my daughter, and because of this, I wish to learn more about your kind. But learning requires challenge." The Queen stepped aside, revealing 3 tall figures with weapons in hand, guards dressed in dark armor. Liara inhaled sharply. "Mother," Silence, the queen said softly. Liara's mouth closed, though her eyes widened with fear. Evan spoke calmly. What is this test? To see your nature, the queen replied. Humans are known for unpredictable behavior. Some fight without thinking. Some protect with strength far greater than their bodies suggest. She motioned to the guards. You will face them. Not to the death. Not to injury. But to reveal your instinct. 7. Evan frowned. I'm still healing. Tell. I know, she said. That is part of the test. Liara stepped forward in alarm. Mother, that is unfair. The queen turned slowly. Life is unfair. Power is unfair. Courage is unfair. She looked back at Evan. And yet? He stood in front of blades with no armor. He is capable of more than he accepts. Quote, Evan breathed deeply. What do you want me to do? Defend yourself, the queen said. I do not wish for your victory. I wish for your truth. Evan stepped toward the platform. The guards circled him, holding practice staffs that glowed with faint light. Not deadly, but painful. Evan took a fighting stance. The first guard lunged. Evan blocked with his arm, gritting his teeth as pain flashed through his ribs. He stepped back, then pivoted, using the guard's own force to push him aside. The second guard swung low. Evan jumped back, but the motion strained his wound. He gasped but kept moving. His vision blurred for a moment, but he regained focus. The queen watched closely, her eyes sharp and analyzing. Evan's mind worked fast. He wasn't trying to win, only to show control. He dodged, blocked, stepped aside, and used his smaller size to move between their strikes. Liara clutched her hands tightly, her face pale with worry. The third guard attacked aggressively. Evan ducked, rolled to the side, and grabbed the staff for leverage, pulling himself up. His injured ribs screamed in pain, but he refused to fall. Minutes passed. The guards increased pressure, moving faster. Evan's breath grew heavy, sweat forming on his forehead. He blocked a hard strike with his forearm, and pain shot through him, but he pushed back, holding his ground. He could have used more force. He could have knocked one guard down. He could have fought like he had in the garden. But he didn't. He controlled himself. He chose restraint, and the queen finally saw it. Enough, she said. The guards stepped back instantly. Evan straightened slowly, holding his rib. His breathing was rough, but he stood tall. Liara rushed to him, ignoring the noble's whispers. Evan, you're hurt. He shook his head. Just tired. The queen stepped forward. You had opportunities to strike, she said. To harm, to overpower. But you chose not to. Because this wasn't war, Evan replied simply. The queen studied him deeper, as if trying to look inside his thoughts. You are dangerous, she said. Liara froze. Evan blinked. Dangerous? Yes, the queen continued. Not because you fight with force, but because you fight with purpose. You do not strike unless you must. You do not lose control. That is more dangerous than power. Evan didn't know what to say. The queen stepped closer. A being who chooses when to fight can change the fate of nations. The chamber grew silent. From this moment, the queen declared, Evan Hale will serve as the personal guardian of Princess Liara. His actions in the garden were not chance. His nature is clear. He is a protector. The nobles erupted into whispers. Liara's eyes widened. Mother. But the queen continued, her tone final. He will not leave this palace unless I say so. His duty is tied to the princess. Where she goes, he will go. Where she stands, he will stand. His life is now aligned with her safety. Evan felt the weight of those words settle onto his shoulders. It was not freedom. It was not imprisonment. It was something in between. Liara looked at him with a mixture of relief, fear, and something deeper, something she didn't fully understand yet. The queen raised her final command. And know this. If anyone attempts to remove him, they challenge the royal throne. Evan swallowed hard. He didn't choose this, but he didn't reject it either. He thought of the garden, the danger, The princess behind him. His own decision to stand and bleed. Maybe this was where he was meant to be. Liara whispered softly beside him. You protected me once. Now my mother has made it your destiny. Evan looked at her, calm and steady. No, he said quietly. I chose it before she did. Liara's breath caught in her throat. The queen watched them with unreadable eyes, calculating, thoughtful, and strangely satisfied. The test was over, but the true challenge had only begun. The days following Evan Hale's appointment as Princess Liara's personal guardian passed quickly, but none of them felt simple. Evan was given new quarters close to the royal wing, and though they were comfortable, he could feel the invisible walls around him. He was allowed to walk the halls, but watched by guards. He was allowed to speak with anyone, but always under quiet observation. He was granted freedom, but only the kind the queen controlled. Even so, Evan refused to let frustration control him. He focused on healing, strengthening his body, and preparing for anything that might threaten the princess again. And Liara? She visited him every day, sometimes with questions about Earth, sometimes with books about Zalira history, sometimes just to sit near the window and talk. Their bond grew not romantic, but deep in trust and understanding. One evening, after a long day of lessons and council sessions, Liara knocked softly on Evan's door. Come in, he said. She stepped inside, her expression tired but warm. I escaped the council for a moment. I needed air. And someone who does not speak in riddles. Evan raised an eyebrow. And that someone is me? Yes, she said simply. She walked toward the window and looked out across the glowing city. Evan stood beside her, silent, letting her breathe. After a moment, she spoke softly. My mother is planning something. I do not know the details yet, but it involves you. Evan had expected that. She wants to keep me close. Liara shook her head slowly. Closer than you think. Before Evan could ask more, a loud alarm echoed through the palace, deep, vibrating, sharper than anything he had heard before. Liara's eyes widened. That is not a training sound. That is a real warning. Evan was already moving. The palace halls filled with rushing guards. Servants evacuated toward protected areas. The blue lights along the walls turned red. Evan pushed through the crowd, guiding Liara securely through the twisting corridors. Where's the safest place? He asked. The Queen's chamber, Liara replied. It has strong shields. They hurried through the garden corridor, the same one where Evan had first bled for her. Evan scanned every shadow, every corner. His instincts were loud now. Something was wrong. Something big. As they reached the Queen's chamber doors, 2 royal guards stepped forward. Princess, inside quickly, one said. Evan started to follow, but the guard blocked him. He enters too, Liara said sharply. He is my guardian. The guard hesitated only a second before stepping aside. The Queen stood in the center of the room, surrounded by advisors. She turned immediately when Liara and Evan entered. Close the doors, she commanded. The chamber sealed shut with a heavy echo. Evan stepped closer. What's happening? The Queen's expression tightened. A faction inside the High Council has risen against the throne. They plan to take Liara, and they believe removing me will weaken the Empire enough for them to seize control. Evan felt a cold anger rise. The garden attack, the whispers in the council, the tests. It all made sense now. The threat was not outside the palace. It was born inside it. Liara spoke quietly, fear tightening her voice. Mother, how many joined them? Enough to attempt something this bold. The Queen raised her chin. But they forget who they are facing. The advisors murmured urgently. Evan stood ready, scanning the room. A deep rumble shook the palace. The Queen looked at Evan. You must take Liara to the lower sanctuary. Its shields are older, but strong. I'm not leaving you here alone, Evan said firmly. The Queen's eyes narrowed. This is not a request. Another explosion rocked the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Liara grabbed Evan's arm. Please. We must go. She will follow when she can. Evan clenched his jaw. His instincts screamed to protect them both. But Liara was the future of the Empire. If the rebels wanted anything, It was her. Fine, Evan said. But we move now. They exited through a hidden passage behind the Queen's throne. It spiraled down through ancient stone tunnels, lit only by glowing vines. Evan kept Liara close, listening for any sound. His injured ribs still ached, but he ignored the pain. Halfway down, the echo of footsteps approached. Stop, Evan whispered. Liara froze. 3 rebels appeared from the shadows. They were dressed in council robes, not guard armor. Their faces were uncovered, meaning they wanted to be known. One pointed a weapon. Princess Liara, you will come with us. The Empire will not fall into your hands. Evan stepped forward. You'll have to walk through me. The rebels looked confused. Why would a smaller human stand against armed Zalira? Then the leader sneered. You are just a human. You bleed easily. We saw the reports. Evan held his stance. And you should know, I don't fall easily. They rushed him. Evan dodged the first strike, grabbed a broken piece of stone from the tunnel wall, and used it to block a blade. Pain shot through his ribs, but he stayed steady. One rebel swung at Liara. Evan pushed her behind him and took the hit on his shoulder. The force knocked him back, but he caught himself, refusing to fall. Liara cried out, Evan, I'm fine, he said through clenched teeth. He countered fast, controlled, slamming the stone into the rebel's arm. The weapon dropped. Evan kicked it away. The second rebel moved in. Evan blocked, pivoted, and forced them toward the wall, using their momentum to unbalance them. But the third rebel slipped past and reached for Liara. Evan's heart stopped. He lunged without thinking, grabbing the rebel's arm before the weapon could touch her. The blade scraped across his forearm, reopening old wounds. Blood dripped down his hand, but he didn't let go. With a sharp twist, he pulled the rebel down and pinned them to the floor. Breathing hard, covered in sweat and blood, Evan stood between Liara and danger once again. The rebels realized they were losing and fled deeper into the tunnels. Liara rushed to Evan's side. You're bleeding again. You're hurt. Evan shook his head. We move. They'll bring more. She looked at him, afraid, conflicted, grateful, all at once. Why do you keep doing this? Evan answered simply. Because your life matters. Something in Liara's chest tightened, but she said nothing. She only took his hand and guided him down the tunnel. They reached the lower sanctuary, a circular room glowing with ancient shields. The walls shimmered like solid light. Evan scanned the entrance, making sure it was secure. Liara stepped inside. We will be safe here for now. Before Evan could respond, the Queen's voice echoed behind them. You protected her again. They turned. Queen Ceres entered the sanctuary, dust on her robe but her posture strong. Guards followed behind her. Liara rushed to her. Mother, you're safe. Yes, the Queen said. Because rebels fear me more than they fear death. She looked at Evan. Her eyes softened only a little. You faced trained attackers, injured, unarmed, yet you still shielded my daughter. Evan wiped blood from his arm. I do what I must. No, the Queen said quietly. You do what your heart decides. She stepped closer. I understand now. Humans are not strong because of muscle. They are strong because they choose to protect, even when they should not be able to. Evan didn't speak. The Queen lowered her voice. You are rare, Evan Hale. Too rare to let go. Too rare to send back to Earth, where your strength would be wasted. Liara looked between them. Mother, the Queen continued, from this day, you will stay in this palace permanently. You will stand beside my daughter, as her protector, her advisor, and her shield. Your life is tied to hers, not by force, but by your actions. Evan felt the weight of her words. This was not a request, not even a command. It was a declaration of fate. Liara took a small step closer to him. Evan, I want you to stay. Not because my mother says so, but because I trust you. Evan breathed slowly. The path ahead was dangerous, heavy, full of uncertainty, but he looked at Liara, at her fear, her hope, her strength. He nodded once. I will stay, by choice. Liara let out a quiet breath of relief. The Queen nodded in satisfaction. Good. Then the Empire will know that the human who bled for the royal line is now part of it. Evan stood tall despite the pain, a human alone on an alien world yet no longer alone. A protector not by duty, but by will. A warrior recognized not for power, but for heart. He was not returning to Earth, not now, perhaps not ever, because the throne of Zelira refused to let him go, and because Evan Hale had chosen to stay.